Good morning, I'm Kenneth Moten.
And I'm Kaylee Hartung. Here are the top 5 things to know this Thursday. Number 1, the chaos on Capitol Hill.
Republicans demanding more transparency in the impeachment investigation crashed a closed-door hearing and delayed testimony from a Pentagon official. Democrats say it was just an effort to distract after damning testimony from the top diplomat in Ukraine.
And we're now learning that the president of Ukraine worried about being pressured by President Trump to investigate Joe Biden even before he took office.
Number 2, the fire threat in California.
A combination of dry and windy weather is leading to critical fire danger across much of the state. A new fire sparked overnight in Sonoma County. And today's Santa Ana winds near Los Angeles could hit 50 miles per hour, the strongest of the season so far.
Hundreds of thousands of customers are facing more planned blackouts to prevent electrical equipment from sparking fires.
On to number 3. President Trump is taking credit for what's being called a permanent ceasefire in Syria just days after Russia and Turkey hammered out the terms.
The president has now lifted sanctions imposed on Turkey for its deadly offensive against the Syrian Kurds, who were U.S. allies and helped fight ISIS.
The president says few ISIS fighters escaped during the fighting, but the president's own envoy to Syria contradicted that claim Wednesday, testifying that more than 100 ISIS fighters escaped, and the U.S. doesn't know where they are.
Number 4, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg got an angry earful on several topics during a hearing on Capitol Hill.
He was discussing Facebook's digital currency, but he was also confronted about his company's record on hate speech and privacy. And Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez grilled him about Facebook's policy of not fact-checking political ads.
Could I run ads targeting Republicans in primaries saying that they voted for the Green New Deal? I mean, if you're not fact-checking political advertisements, I'm just trying to understand the bounds here.
I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head.
Do you see a potential problem here with a complete lack of fact-checking on political advertisements?
I think if you were to run an ad that had a lie, that would be bad.
Zuckerberg also said Facebook would take down any politician's post that could lead to violence or voter suppression.
And finally, number 5. It's that time of year when we all want a good scare. If a horror film is on your list, you're not alone.
A new study finds the average American sees their first scary movie at age 10.
And researchers found 52% of people say what scared them as a kid still has an effect on them today.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, Michael Myers is the devil from Halloween. I still have nightmares about him today. Good morning. 1 week to go into Halloween, and so we're gonna kick things off with the question of the day, which is your favorite Halloween movie.
Scary, frightening, terrifying, nightmare-inducing movie.
Halloween, Friday the 13th. The list goes on and on. I don't really want to talk about them because they scare me so much. How old were you when you saw your first one, really? Tweet us at ABC News Live, comments section. Let us know. We want to hear from you. All right, let's get to the big story now. That chaotic scene on Capitol Hill, House Republicans barging into a secure room and bringing the impeachment inquiry to a halt. The lawmakers demanded transparency and held up testimony for hours, just a day after President Trump urged them to fight harder.
And we're now hearing that months before their fateful phone call, the president of Ukraine had voiced concern that President Trump would pressure him to investigate Joe Biden. We've also learned about a new court ruling that will force the State Department to turn over Ukraine-related documents within 30 days.
ABC's Inez de la Cotara joins us with all the new developments from Washington, including that chaos at the Capitol. Good morning, Inez.
Good morning, Kenneth and Kaylee. That disruption delaying a key testimony by nearly 5 hours as we're learning new details about what the Ukrainian president told his advisors just days after President Trump called him to congratulate him on his election. This morning, the Associated Press is reporting shortly after he was elected and more than 2 months before the phone call that launched the impeachment inquiry, Ukraine's President Zelensky told a small group of advisors he was concerned about becoming entangled in U.S. politics and worried about pressure from President Trump to investigate his political opponents. As the scandal continues to escalate, tensions on Capitol Hill reaching a boiling point, with the president's Republican allies storming a secure hearing room where lawmakers from both parties were set to question another key witness in the impeachment inquiry. Some GOP members even violating House rules by using their cell phones inside.
By golly, if they're going to do it in public.
The president and his supporters have called the impeachment process unfair. They want the hearings made public. Trump, who was aware of what Republicans were planning, taking to Twitter to call never-Trumpers human scum.
So this is an effort to please the president, to try to shut down the process. It's a stunt.
Democrats are fighting back, arguing Republicans simply want to distract from what they're learning, and pointing out then Congressman Mike Pompeo also conducted closed-door interviews during the Benghazi hearings.
You know, in Benghazi, there were these depositions in the SCIF. The Democrats participated.
This as another crack appeared in the president's GOP firewall, with the number 2 Republican in the Senate admitting
the picture coming out of it, based on the reporting that we've seen, is, I would say is not a good one.
And House Democrats had said that they were holding hearings privately to ensure that witnesses could not coordinate their testimonies. The Washington Post is now reporting that they are looking at making those hearings public as soon as mid-November. Kenneth and Kaylee.
Inez talking about some serious business down there. Some would also consider Inez pretty frightening about what's been happening down there. So let's bring you in on this. What's your favorite Halloween movie?
I hate scary movies, so I can't.
Join
I mean,
the
I was
club.
listening to you guys.
We're in
Yeah,
it.
I can't sleep for days if I watch a scary movie. So I want to say, like, all the scary movies, probably those scary movies that are kind of funnier.
Oh, the ones that
are
call
probably
it
what I'd
scary
go for.
movie.
Yeah.
You like when they make
Yeah.
a joke of it, right?
yeah.
But even those can be still a little frightening.
Yeah.
So, all right, Inez, thanks for your take. We appreciate it.
Some other stories we're watching this morning. 2 of Rudy Giuliani's associates arrested this month have pleaded not guilty to campaign finance charges. The Soviet-born businessmen were each released on $1 million bond and subjected to home confinement in Florida. They're accused of a campaign finance scheme that funneled money from a Russian donor. Their relationship with Giuliani is the subject of an ongoing criminal investigation.
A Northern California community is mourning the death of a sheriff's deputy. El Dorado County Deputy Brian Ishmael was shot responding to a call about stolen marijuana plants. Suspects opened fire as soon as Ishmael arrived. There was another deputy with him who was also shot, but is okay this morning. The 37-year-old Ishmael leaves behind a wife and 3 children. 2 suspects were taken into custody.
We turn now to critical wildfire danger in California. For the second time in 2 weeks, hundreds of thousands of people are being affected by planned power outages.
Utility companies are hoping to prevent wildfires as the state braces today for some of the strongest winds of the season. This morning, the blackouts are back in California. A combination of dry and windy weather is leading to critical fire danger across much of the state. This new video shows a fire that sparked overnight in Sonoma County.
Red flag alerts for you in the South Bay due to strong winds, also Ventura County area.
Today's Santa Ana winds near Los Angeles could hit 50 miles per hour, the strongest of the season so far. And now, for the second time in 2 weeks, utility companies in the state are taking preemptive action by cutting off electricity to customers, trying to avoid a repeat of past disasters, like last year's fire that destroyed the town of Paradise, a fire sparked by downed power lines. These newest outages could affect nearly 500,000 customers in the state.
And basically was out of business for 4 days when they shut me down last time. So hopefully it's not going to hit us this time.
A wildfire in Pacific Palisades this week is exactly what so many fear. The flames were fueled by dry conditions and strong winds. New infrared video shows the fire continuing to burn for days, with hot spots glowing white. The state's largest power company, PG&E, has apologized, saying the precautionary outages are necessary for customers' safety. But many have been critical, calling the outages a huge inconvenience.
It's round 2.
It is round 2. We're not happy about it. We are not looking forward to peanut butter dinner again tonight.
And this may not be the end of it. PG&E is now saying there could be another power shutoff this weekend.
Massachusetts authorities have reported 17 additional cases of vaping-related lung injuries to the CDC. Overall, the state has reported 46 cases to the agency. Nearly half of the patients were 30 and younger. Nationwide, the CDC has linked vaping to nearly 1,500 lung illnesses and 33 deaths. Scientists are racing to find the cause and are now looking at vaping devices themselves.
A Virginia woman says she thought she was going to die when she was hit by a city bus in Richmond. You see that video there.
Wow.
It is newly released and it shows Hope D'Amico being knocked down last fall, then jumping up moments later. She says she's still recovering. November's incident came to light after a pedestrian was hit and killed near the same intersection 2 weeks ago. Tennessee officials are apologizing for an incident that cost a deaf man his only means of hearing.
Brett Evans was tased, leaving the scene of a suspected domestic dispute. He says he didn't hear commands to stop because the battery in his cochlear implant had died. When Evans hit the ground, the implant fell out. His mother says he had no idea what was happening.
He was walking, he felt a shock. His arms fell beside him. He leaned over. He assumed it was his cochlear malfunction in his head. That was the first thing he thought of, and he was scared and crying.
Evans was not involved in the domestic case. The Campbell County Sheriff's Department has agreed to pay for a new implant for him. The old one cost $8,000.
Wow, the state of Michigan has met its newest multimillionaires.
Philip and Don Chippewa won $80 million in the September 21st Powerball drawing. They picked up the big check yesterday, joined by some of their 7 children and 21 grandchildren. The couple is still working, believe it or not.
Mr. Chippewa there says his boss asks him every day, "Why are you here?" He tells him he was hired to do a job and he's not going to abandon anyone just because he won. But I will tell you, the moment there's a dispute or something happens or someone says something to him, he's like, I'm out of here.
Congratulations to that couple. You know, they say among the things they want to do with $43 million they're taking home out of that whole jackpot? They want to buy new homes for all 7 of their children.
Oh, so all 7 and the grandkids? The 21 grandchildren?
They look young. The grandchildren look young.
They'll have $1 million left.
You know who else has millions to spend
What
now?
a great segue, because Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg is officially a $1 million thinker.
RBG has been awarded a $1 million prize for philosophy and culture. It's given out each year to thinkers whose ideas have profoundly shaped human self-understanding and advancement in a rapidly changing world. It cited her work in the 1970s with the Women's Rights Project. The money will go to a charity or a nonprofit of Justice Ginsburg's choice.
Well, coming up, we're going to tell you how to carve the most creative jack-o'-lanterns, as well as tips for how to freshen up your days-old work of art.
But first, what scientists have trained rats to do. That's after this.
Welcome back. We turn now to the sex offenders who are suing a county sheriff in Georgia over a warning this Halloween.
Local sex offenders were told that signs will be placed in their yards, warning people not to trick or treat at their houses. A judge is expected to rule today on whether the signs are a privacy violation.
This morning, a county sheriff and a group of sex offenders facing off in court over a Halloween warning.
Everybody needs to know it's just a matter of protecting your family.
The Butts County, Georgia Sheriff's Office placed these signs in sex offenders' yards last Halloween, discouraging trick-or-treaters. The large white sign reading, "No trick-or-treat at this address," a community safety message from County Sheriff Gary Long.
I even showed my kids, I was like, see there, y'all don't go to that house. You know, so to me, it's keeping your kids safe.
But now, sex offenders have filed a lawsuit, hoping to stop the sheriff from doing it again this year. They argue Georgia's sex offender registry law does not require signs to be placed at the home of offenders, and that they were not given a chance to refuse putting the signs up. According to the lawsuit, one deputy told an offender he could be arrested if he removed the sign from his yard. An attorney representing the sex offenders says placing signs on private property violates multiple legal and constitutional rights. But Sheriff Long is vowing to fight for the signs, writing on Facebook, "Regardless of the judge's ruling, I will do everything within the letter of the law to protect the children of this community."
The sex offenders are also seeking compensation for, quote, the stress, fear, and humiliation that the signs caused last year.
Let's check our notifications now. Starting with the World Series, heading to Washington after the Nationals hammered the Astros 12-3 to grab a 2-games-to-none lead there, Kaylee.
But the play of the night came from Olympic champ Simone Biles.
Woo!
Check it out. She threw out the ceremonial first pitch oh so casually after performing that standing fullback flip with a twist in jeans.
She looks good in that Houston Astros orange, doesn't she?
She does.
She pops. Next, a bizarre story and a stroke of good luck there for a woman who discovered she had cancer after seeing herself in a thermal image. She was at some type of event. She stood in front of this thermal image camera. She saw something that just didn't look right.
You see that dark spot? You can see that dark spot on her chest.
On her chest there. She went to Google, started searching, and then she went to the doctor, and early stage breast cancer And obviously, they caught it early, which is good news for her.
Thankfully. Did you ever read the book, The Mouse and the Motorcycle? No, me neither. Well, scientists have come close to proving it's possible. They've taught rats to drive a tiny car in exchange for Fruit Loops.
And they did it because that's what you do with rats that you're studying, right? You just do stuff with them to see what they can do.
Because why not? And you know, among the things they discovered in this study was that these rats they learned to drive had less stress and anxiety. Those levels actually decreased.
Oh.
But my reaction to that is there's no traffic in this tiny little cage they're learning to drive this car in. So put some other cars in there and watch those stress levels just go through the roof.
After working with rats for so long, I'm sure those researchers were just tired of seeing them spinning their wheels.
Yep, for sure. Next, you've heard of money burning a hole in your pocket?
I have heard of that.
Well, this is a whole different story.
A worker at a used clothes store in northern Indiana found $7,000 in cash inside the pocket of a donated jacket. Jennifer Kimes panicked a little, then called her boss. The next step was returning the cash to its owner.
I mean, sometimes you find like gum, you know, or a picture, or a grocery list or something like that. You don't find like $7,000 in a pocket. It just scared me. It made me nervous. I mean, you know, everybody wants to hold a wad of cash, but it wasn't mine, so I didn't get too excited about it.
Cash and owner have now been reunited. The workers didn't get a reward, but they felt good doing the right thing.
Wait, they didn't get a reward?
That's
not a $50?
Just
$20, something?
But how in the world did the guy who donated the jacket just not notice that a wad of $7,000 was missing? That is not a problem I would have. No.
Nope, not at all. This was also not a problem people had because it was kind of cute. Moose on the loose in Alaska eating jack-o'-lanterns.
He'd probably like our pumpkins we carved up today.
He would destroy them because they were so ugly. We did some pumpkin carving earlier that we will actually show you in just a little bit. And yeah, we needed a
Kenneth didn't win the competition.
moose to save us.
Speaking of jack-o'-lanterns, we're counting down the days to the scariest day of the year. Do you know Halloween? It's just a week away.
So as promised, we are checking out some extreme pumpkin carving. Will Gans got tips from the experts, the Maniac Pumpkin Carvers.
You might scream. You may get spooked.
Here's Johnny.
Because these pumpkins are scary good. They're the artistic creations of Mark Evan and Chris Soria, aka the Maniac Pumpkin Carvers.
Me and Chris have been friends since we were kids, and we're both, you know, lifelong artists, and we're both very competitive with each other. And so we were constantly trying to like one-up each other with like who can do a cooler pumpkin this year for Halloween. And so we've been celebrating Halloween as like an art form since we were in high school, and really like always trying to push the boundaries of what's next.
What started as competition between friends has led to a spookily successful business operation. Mark and Chris work in other mediums year-round as muralists, illustrators, and painters. But they carve out this time of year for the pumpkins.
The season is a good 3 months for us, September, October, November, with majority of it taking place in October.
Is it safe to say that Halloween is the Super Bowl of the pumpkin carving season?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And these guys are the champs, hired by major companies for seasonal promotions or for big events like weddings, and sometimes by an average Joe who wants an above-average jack-o'-lantern. Art museums ask the guys to recreate the classics. It's what the Maniac Pumpkin Carvers call their artist series.
You know, we spend maybe 12 to 16 hours on each one of those, but they're worth it.
They better be. Jack-o'-lanterns' lifespans are short.
But then something like this, which is stunning and beautiful and so cool to look at, is it hard for you to know that this time, a month from now, this probably won't be here?
It's something that we have come to embrace. It's something that is ephemeral, and it's meant to be enjoyed in the moment.
So as the orders come in, Mark and Chris hire up to 20 extra artists to help carve and get those pumpkins out the door in time. The guys work in two styles of carving, etching like this, and sculpting like this. But if you're sticking to the basics this year, don't worry. The Pumpkin Pros have tips and tricks to treat your jack-o'-lantern well this spooky season. When picking the perfect pumpkin, start with the stem.
you want a healthy stem. The health of the stem is often indicative of the health of the pumpkin. So if it's a flimsy stem or it doesn't look that healthy, the pumpkin is probably also not in the best shape. Don't pick the pumpkin up by its stem. It's a stem, not a handle.
Next tip, skinny ain't always better.
So you want to pick it up if it feels super light. That means the walls of the pumpkin are going to be thinner, and that's just going to allow for a lot less detail.
When you're carving your pumpkin, don't cut a hole in the top to gut it. The maniacs say it looks worse and it will decompose faster. Instead,
we cut out of the back where you don't see a very clean cut, kind of some sort of geometric shape that fits back into the pumpkin.
the guys use a light bulb instead of a candle and staple the pumpkin parts back together for support. Kinda like...
It's alive!
Speaking of bringing things back to life, if your jack-o'-lantern is dying a premature death and you want to keep him around a bit longer,
you fill a bucket with water and ice, maybe like a cap full of bleach, and you submerge the pumpkin, take the light out of the pumpkin, and you submerge the pumpkin in the ice water. The ice water kind of like shocks it back to life.
There you have it. Yours may not be maniac material, but I'm sure your pumpkin will turn out gorgeous nonetheless.
Wow, those are some good tips from Will there. Like putting the pumpkin in water and bleach to revive it.
Who knew? Who knew? And the fact that you really need to look at the stem when you're choosing your pumpkin.
Oh, right. And don't, obviously, from the top, don't cut it from the top.
Yeah.
Just put it in the back and put it back together.
Staple
That's
it
pretty
together
cool.
like Frankenstein.
Well, we needed those tips earlier. On World News Now, we were carving pumpkins. It was really tough. And then I decided to have a little fun.
And I decided to let out a shrill scream that I need to apologize for.
Mm-hmm.
But it's harder to carve that way.
I know, and I'm just afraid that I might... Oh, God. Oh.
You are so mean. What? I apologize for that shrill scream I just let out. Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. I'm so glad you didn't curse. I'm sorry. Do you typically laugh when someone cuts their hand and they're bleeding profusely?
You poor thing, I have zero sympathy for you, you cruel, cruel prankster.
Oh, well.
Oh, well played, my friend, though. Well played.
I struck first.
Not see that coming. Although I was legitimately afraid at several moments that I could have actually harmed myself.
They almost gave us kid-proof knives, though.
They should have. They probably should have. But it was like there was like a timed element, it felt like. It was like a race against the clock for us to...
Oh, no, because we were doing it throughout the show this morning, so...
There actually was a
You
time
did a
on
really
it.
good job with yours. I did not, because I was too busy focused on my prank there.
We'll give you points for that.
Well, coming up, another busy day ahead. We'll tell you what's on the schedule.
Plus, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is speaking out about the Joker stares. If you've seen the movie, you know what we're talking about. Here's what to watch out for today. President Trump is scheduled to participate in a ceremonial lighting of the Diya for the holiday of Diwali and award the Presidential Medal of Freedom to racing mogul Roger Penske.
The body of Congressman Elijah Cummings will lie in state today at the U.S. Capitol. Leaders on both sides of the aisles are expected to attend services. Cummings died last week following complications from health challenges. He was 68. Baltimore mourners paid respect to their longtime congressman at Morgan State University. Former presidents Barack Obama and Bill Clinton will deliver remarks at his funeral Friday.
Democrats running for president are on the campaign trail. Bernie Sanders, Beto O'Rourke, Julian Castro, and Tulsi Gabbard, they will all participate in the League of United Latin American Citizens Town Hall in Iowa, while Elizabeth Warren, Pete Buttigieg, and Andrew Yang campaign in New Hampshire.
And the Chicago teachers' strike is entering its 8th day. The sides are separated by several major issues, including pay and health benefits. The union seems to be preparing for the long haul. It has a civil disobedience training session scheduled this afternoon.
Plus, don't forget to tune into The Debrief for an update on all of our top stories and The Briefing Room for a breakdown of the latest headlines in politics.
And we have a new development involving the Joker stairs.
We told you earlier this week about that concrete staircase in the Bronx here in New York City that's been attracting so many selfie seekers. The stairs played a pivotal role in the Joker movie, in which Joaquin Phoenix's character finally rounded the bend into a total life of crime.
Now, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, whose district includes that staircase, is weighing in on TMZ.
When I was growing up, everyone would tell away from those steps or go with a friend. I think the way a lot of us feel is, listen, like, keep your Instagram posts outside of the boogie down. Like, this is for us.
Right. By the way, the staircase now has its own location on Instagram. So how about that?
Won't be hard to find. Google Maps pops up on Google Maps too. It's labeled Joker Stairs. How easy.
Okay.
I'm not interested in going
No,
or seeing the movie.
yeah.
Put that on that list of like scary movies, none of which I want to see.
Were you interested in my prank?
No, wasn't interested in that either, but didn't have a choice.
Well, they just cue the music, which means it's our time to go. That's it for us. Kaylee, it's been great to have you on This Morning America. You're back next week with us.
Next week.
We can't wait.
I'll sleep a whole bunch in between now and
And then she'll come back fresh, unlike me. Hey, have a good one. We'll see ya.